Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. We are doing an AskBR on Soorarai Pottru and Mookuthi Amman. Komal Bhavsar asks, don't you think a terrific movie like Soorarai Pottru would have been such a boost to Surya and the audience's mindset had it been released in theatres after a couple of duds like NGK and Kapan? Which factor do you think is more important for a star like Surya, or box office, or just appreciation? First of all, I don't think NGK is a dud. I think it's a flawed film and I think it has problems, but people are going to kill me for this, but I think I like it compared to Soorarai Pottru because there are some very interesting raw edges in the film, and I really love Surya's performance in that film. I think the of late we've gotten Surya to a point where uh, he can deliver oratory like these long lines of like rhetorical dialogue. He can do it almost the way Shivaji Ganeshan did it. I'll tell you why. Because in the middle we lacked actors with either the inclination to do these kind of roles with these heavy dialogue chunks, or the people who wrote it for them, or they simply lack the voice. Now, voice is another powerful ingredient in the delivery of these dialogues, and I think after Shivaji, I think Surya is the actor who combines both the voice, the emotive ability, and the ability to project that dialogue. And the finest example in recent times is that speech that he gives in NGK around the time that his parents are murdered. That's like bone chilling for me. I mean, like, it was like at once goose fleshy and bone chillingly and whatever elsely for me, because it just like, I had so many problems with the film, but that, when you have those little bits that shine like sharp diamonds, right? Some of the films becomes like much more than what the flaws are. And I think NGK was one of those films for me. Kapan, I agree, was a complete dud. But this, I think, would have done well in theaters. I think to an extent. I'm not sure about like the complete reach because of the subject, not because of the treatment, because of this aviation and all that kind of stuff. But then, like, Janta seems to have loved it, who've seen it in the OTT platform. So maybe, that I don't know how you can extrapolate from OTT to the actual theatrical scenario. But had this happened, then yes, it would have been a surefire blockbuster. As to what is important for Surya, I think what is important for him is appreciation, yes, because he's a damn good actor. But I have a feeling that he also wants to be this humongous star, because you always find his movies kind of compromised in some ways, and I have a feeling that he tweaks them, to get that to get that big reach, like as opposed to Kamal, who used to do this whole thing of his Kamal's way of retaining his stardom was, I'll do one movie for myself and I'll do one movie for the audience, and I'll do one movie for myself and I'll do one movie for the audience. And the movies that he did for himself, they were very pure movies. Like, you look at a Mahanadi, there is no mass fight, nothing. It's like a pure Kamal movie. And then you'll make a Singara Velan or something like that. I don't know the exact time thing, but I'm just saying. So, whereas Surya is trying to combine both. He's trying to say, I will make a Mahanadi, but I will make a mass Mahanadi. I think that's where I'm getting a little like disconnect with his films of late. The last Surya film that I truly, truly loved with all my heart and enjoyed and completely was amazed by, except for one small portion, was 24. I just love that movie. I think masala science fiction, whoever thought of it, Vikram Kumar, that's a genius idea. The idea of having these three roles and all that kind of stuff and doing it on such a scale and with such vision. I mean, it blew my mind when I saw it, and I saw it again a year or two ago, and I still was like, wow, that's really amazing movie. And I think when that film doesn't do well, I think, an actor says, okay, now I've got to kind of figure out a way where I can make my 24s or my Mahanadis and yet kind of, get this audience. And I think that's why the scripts kind of go a little all over the place, which is my feeling, but I don't know what really happens behind the scenes. But I would say stardom is very important to him, more than appreciation, is what I think. Praneeth Hanumantu asks a question that I had, whether a linear structure would have helped. I think so, because sometimes when you have a non-linear structure, you're going back and forth, it becomes a little difficult and tricky to kind of invest in it in emotionally, to kind of fully get. And I think another thing that I had with the problem with the movie was it was so fast paced. It was like on constant fast forward, and I wanted to pause sometimes and kind of take stock of what was happening, and that wasn't happening. And maybe this fast forward kind of narration plus a linear structure might have made me connect with it more. But then again, so many people have connected with it, so maybe the problem is really not that much of a big problem. So Narendra Kumandan says, would the movie have worked if it was not highly fictionalized for a theatrical high on Goosebumps and instead made a pure biopic style of filmmaking? Therefore, he says there are compromises. Listen, I actually think there is no real thing as a biopic. A biopic is basically means it's based on the biography of a person. But if you take 95% of the biopics in the world, from Lawrence of Arabia to Amadeus to anything, that Edith Piaf movie, uh, there is always fictionalization. There is always dramatization. There is not no such thing as like a pure biopic that shows everything the same way it happened. Characters are compressed, characters are expanded. Villains are added. Friendships are created. All kinds social network. Mark Zuckerberg says probably there was nothing in common with what he actually had. That conversation that starts the film, that big conversation that everyone keeps talking about. Wow, Aaron Sorkin dialogue, this, that, and all. It's a great scene, but it's a complete fiction. This didn't happen at all. So some things happen because it's fictionalized, and I don't separate between biopics and non-biopics because it's all fiction, and it just happens to be a fictionalized life of a man as opposed to a fictionalized life of an imaginary person. So it doesn't bother me that a biopic has been massified because a biopic is basically a story, and I would rather have an interesting story than a true to life account of whatever happened. That's me. Mahi1508 says Soorarai Pottru is more suitable for a web series, but then hey, it was planned as a theatrical release. Yes, it may have worked better as a web series, but you have to remember that this was not some made for OTT film. It was made for a big theater experience. So it had to be this way, I guess. Kavalik Click says it was refreshing to see the Sundari character, brilliantly portrayed by Aparna Balamurali, play the role of a female protagonist with the same standing as that of a male hero. Do you think this will set a trend of dominant female characters in films of male stars? Oh my God! I mean, like, this is really the height of optimism. I think this is not going to happen at all. I think this is be like a very rare occasion where somebody wants you have Sudha behind in the writing team. That's I mean it's her script, and that's why you have this thing. The director has to want to make this, and the hero has to. Now, even in this, I don't think that she's at the same standing as the hero. Hers is a I mean, it's interestingly written and it is so vivid that you feel that she's on par with the hero. But if you actually take her character arc, it's actually much less than that of the hero. And that's the maximum probably you can go in these mass movies. You cannot go beyond this. So, as for the hope that future heroine characters will be like this, I doubt it. I think we are generally too much in love with the bubbly kind of heroine to kind of really get into real rooted earthy heroines like this one. So trust me, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. The wiki guy says, first of all, I like the film, but why the main thrust of the protagonist to start an airline have to be something so personal, like he can't buy a ticket when his father is his deathbed? Why can't it just be pure entrepreneur zeal? First of all, nobody will buy a ticket to watch a movie with pure entrepreneurial zeal. That is the simple truth. That is all there is to it. I mean, you have to personalize this. Whether they had to personalize this way is a question, maybe, but you have to personalize it. There is no way you can make a movie about a pure business kind of thing in a Tamil mainstream cinema. Divagaran says, hello BR, do you think Tamil audience are ready for a film like There Will Be Blood or Raging Bull after the success of Soorarai Pottru, something like a character study? I don't even think that these films can be compared. But are you asking if we can make a massified version of Raging Bull or There Will Be Blood? Probably. Uh, but you have to remember, but that Raging Bull and There Will Be Blood, to take your examples, are both very negative and also very unlikable characters. I do not think any mainstream hero in Tamil cinema will play that kind of unlikable character, for a character study or whatever it is. And also, I don't think Soorarai Pottru is a character study as such. It's more like a journey of a person, because we really don't get that much into deep into the character to kind of say it's a character study. So I don't think that's going to happen. Manasa Vandana says, what were your thoughts about the characterization of Urvashi in both these films? Do you think the common arc between the two completely movie mother roles that she played? I thought she was OTT in Mookuthi Amman. I mean, really over the top. I mean, even given the film itself is not a realistic film, I thought it was way over the top. Probably because it wasn't written that great. She was okay. I mean, I thought she was nice in Soorarai Pottru. I wouldn't say it's one of her great performances, because she's done amazing roles in Malayalam where she's done dramatic performances and all that. But again, for me it was more like I couldn't connect with the she kind of comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes, and I didn't really get a grasp on this character. I mean, apart from the fact that she's like a generic mother, and she played it well, I thought. Nothing like for Urvashi standards, I thought nothing either this way or that way, but she played it well. I mean, it was a solid character. So Natesh Hariharan says, I felt in Soorarai Pottru the villain's portrayal was very cliched, and it seemed that his only purpose was to destroy Surya, which felt like a personal rivalry rather than a professional one. But again, that you have to do that in mainstream, no? Because whether it's professional or whatever, you have to make it sound personal. Like I'm out to crush you. And it didn't. The problem was more that this Paresh Rawal character is so one note and one dimensional that he doesn't have anything interesting to him. So he's just like this generic villain that Surya has to fight against. So I think that's more the problem than whether it's a personal or a professional rivalry. Tyler Durden says, do you think Mookuthi Amman would have been a way better satirical comedy drama with someone else behind the camera? I don't know what you mean by behind the camera, but I think with Balaji himself, I think it would have been better had he decided what kind of movie he wanted to make, whether he wanted to make a preachy, advicey kind of film, or a comedy, or a satire, or whatever. What he's made is something that kind of has bits of all of these, and I think that's really what the problem is. So the writing is what I think they should have kind of done it, which they did to an extent in LKG, and I think that same team kind of got lost a bit here. The imperfect dancer asked, Surya Kongara was pretty much clear that Surya did not want to be Surya, and also mentioned that the mass aspect was not added for Surya's image. Do you think Sudha's script fell in the category of mass and a proper drama because of doing it subconsciously because of Surya coming into it? See, the problem with stars is this. How, like, unless like they do that Kamal thing of one for you, one for me, if they want to be star slash actors in the same film all through, then they will always be Surya. They cannot, because the image that they're projecting to the audience has to remain the same, right? Even though the characters may be different. So there will be that sermonizing, that massification, that I'm one of you, I'm organic farmer, I'm something. All these things. They need to kind of be there, because that's the image that Surya or any star builds for himself. So you cannot break away from it entirely. So when you say Surya cannot be Surya, it is a testament to Surya's acting that he kind of does this like so well, and he's able to pull it off. But if you ask me if it's a Surya I have never seen before, I might not say that, because that's the whole thing about stars. They're not like actors, pure actors, who kind of they do all these things and kind of okay, I'll always say that disappear into a role is a phrase that I'm not comfortable with, because I don't think beyond a point we can, after a certain actor is known, I don't think anybody can really disappear and make you see only the character. But actors do it to a larger extent than stars do. And I think with Surya, it's always going to be Surya first and the character later. I don't think he can ever disappear, because he's a big star. You cannot help that. Dr. CJS asks, do you get to watch each of the movies in a single go, or okay, with OTT, what I try to do is simulate the theatrical experience as much as possible, in the sense I watch it till interval without interruption, give myself a small break, and watch the rest of it. So the flow is still maintained as it is. Benki Man says, you mentioned in a review that he did not like the movie following a pattern like problem followed by a bigger problem followed by an even bigger problem followed by the climax. Now, if a similar movie like Guru works for you, why do you think this didn't? Actually, Guru didn't work for me all that much. I mean, I kind of didn't mind it, but I don't think it's one of Mani Ratnam's best films. But I didn't say that this was my problem with the film. Followed, I said every biopic follows this template. The the problem followed by a bigger problem, followed by a bigger problem, like Batman. And then each time you kind of end up with like a wall in front of you, and how you break through that wall and go to the next one. That's the whole thing. Now, that's a great example of another reason why I would rather trust the story than it being a biopic, because in Padman, a man from Coimbatore, Arunachalam Muruganandam, became a Madhya Pradesh Hindi speaking guy, like some Lakshmikant Chauhan or something like that. So, that's like a total, transposition of what this person was and stood for. So, it doesn't bother me at all that this is, fictionalized in those ways. Uh, what bothered me about this film was that it I wasn't able to get emotionally hooked on to a lot of it. That was my main problem with the film. Pranav Sharma says, I feel with Soorarai Pottru having so many high moments, if they taken time for us to soak in them, we would not feel cognitively overloaded, and that's how we felt in certain other films. Yeah, I agree with that, because like take that airport scene, right? It's a massively emotional moment where he's begging for money. And what happens after that? Another massively emotional moment with him falling at Urushi's feet and things like that. We barely had the time to recover, process emotionally this moment, and we're just thrust into another one. And I think that's what the thing is, like the movie didn't have time to breathe, the characters didn't have time to breathe, except for the Surya and Aparna scenes, which were really, really nice. And they had these little off moments. Sometimes you need these little off moments to kind of this one. So when you have these big dramatic moments strung together, you kind of have uh, like difficult, like what you call cognitive dissonance or difficulty connecting. But that seems to have worked for a lot of people. And I asked an editor, like whether this rushed editing is something that, I mean, what could be the reason for this kind of editing, like this kind of a fast paced editing, which is almost jerky kind of editing. And this editor said that it actually helps because it gives the audience the sense that they're watching the super smart, super express paced movie. When had the same thing been slowed down, then some of the scripts problems would have been exposed. And I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but at least it's something interesting to think about. So I don't think the the I think maybe it's intentional that it is paced this way, because they want us not think about anything and just like be thrust into the next moment, and then the next moment, and then the next moment. I think that's what happened. Shiva Pranav says the conflict between Mohan Babu character and Surya was not explored well. Yeah, because that guy just comes randomly and goes in two scenes. So by the time that big scene comes in the end, you have to really think back to kind of know, oh wow, this is the big con. And even the conflict seems so minor, like they don't seem like some major thing. So again, I get the feeling that much more was shot between these people and then edited out because of length or whatever. So all these characters ended up being like really really bit players. Naveen Shankaran asked, do you think RJ Balaji is a potential screenwriter giving a solid writing the first 30 minutes of the film? The Amman being jealous of Tirupati. Yeah, I love that touch, Amman being jealous of Tirupati, or that mass fight. I think there are some really solid angles in the film. But then there's also a lot of very loose writing in the film, because like there's a sister who kind of looks like she's going to convert to Christianity, and she adopts kind of a different name, but then that aspect is not explored at all. So it's like, why are you giving this? What is this, the point of this whole thing being here? I don't know. So yeah, I think like some sharpness would be nice. I think, see, screenwriting is this one thing where it's the most difficult thing. It's the most, I think, when you're working towards building characters and all that, and especially a story like this thing, you establish that this Baba has bought all these this acres of land and all these things, and then but the time you get to this Baba, almost 1 hour of the film has elapsed, and you were actually doing something else. So I think, I don't know, these kinds of things could have really helped make this a more coherent film. Bart says, how do you watch these movies objectively, just as movies, without getting disturbed by behind the scenes manipulations that are glaringly visible? Uh, but you watch movies only as movies. What happened behind the movies is of no concern to you. It's like you're only interested in that box that's playing the movie, whether somebody replace somebody else, somebody cut down the script, whatever. I don't care. All I want is the movie to work for me. And if it does, that's fantastic. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't really, uh, one of the things that we have to learn is to distance ourselves. And it's probably ironic that I'm saying this because I interview people all the time. But we have to distance the interviews that people give us about their films and the film itself. Because when people are promoting their films, there are two things that's happening. They're really trying to hard sell the film. But the more important thing is they have been living with the film for about 3 years, 4 years. Inside their head, the film is really something else. What is on screen, what comes to us, is a film that has been through that 3 4 year journey and after all those compromises, after whatever was done, after all those highs, whatever it's come to us, right? So we are only part of this very small end product. So the thing that we see is a far more dispassionate thing than the thing that they are involved with, because for them it's a labor of love. So the when they say that this is there, that is there, this shade is there, that shade is there, sometimes we will never see these things because in their head when they started out all those things were there. But by the time it was edited and acted and this and that and all that, maybe all those shades are gone. And so we'll hear them say something in the interview and it'll be interesting, and like we'll be expecting, wow, that sounds like a really fascinating character, etc., etc. But when we actually watch the movie, that won't be there, simply because for them, that is why movies are so beautiful in a way, because they take such a long time to gestate, or novels or whatever it is. So when you ask a novelist for an interview, they will tell you these great wonderful things, but it's not necessary that the novel you read corresponds with the things that the novelist says about the movie. And so you're only able to watch this, and that objectivity I think is very easy to obtain because you're only concerned with this part of it, not that whole journey of coming to it. Velu Naikar, who I think is a Maniratnam fan, I don't know why, says, would the film have benefited from a more noticeable character arc from a rebel to a tamed beast, as Naidu claims that he's not fit to be a leader and doesn't sign his recommendation, yet he oddly calls him a leader when he lands his plane at his base, like we see in KV. Like we see in Carter Village, but then Carter Village was a bomb. Remember that it was like a huge flop. So it's like you can't have that kind of Surya playing that kind of character, and no, that wouldn't work at all. I think what happened was some intermittent scenes with Mohan Babu maybe got cut, and that's why we are not seeing that arc. But I don't think the character arc could have been any less. That's what I said earlier. See, when a star is playing a role, you certain things are a given. It'll be very very surprising if I'm not talking about Hollywood, right? There, I just read that Leonardo DiCaprio is fighting for his role to become more complex and more darker in the new Martin Scorsese movie that he's acting in. But then that's also because their Hollywood movies are consumed around the world, whereas here you have films that are made for specific markets and whose people have been fed on years for a specific kind of diet. So you can't overnight kind of suddenly kind of take them to a different level. You'll have to kind of work your way through what you think is the best thing for the people as well as for you. And I think that's something that our stars constantly have to fight. Nag says, although a general character arc was present in Mookuthi Amman, Nayanthara's character was very briefly explored. Don't you think the character must have been explained a lot more since she was the selling point of the film? Dude, I think the selling point of the film was that she was in the film and she looked like $1 billion. I mean, really, that like she every time she came on screen, it was like one golden glow was radiating from the screen. And I think beyond that, I don't think the character needed anything at all. I mean, I'm just joking, but that's really what the selling point is, right? But she's the Amman, so I don't know if you can have a character arc for an Amman as such. You have to have a character arc for the hero that incorporates the Amman. And I don't think that happened very well. Yeah, but Nayantara, I think, did what she had to do, and she was radiating Ammanness like nothing on earth. And I think everybody who saw the movie, if you had seen the movie on the big screen, you would have just felt like you've had this religious experience. I really think so. Balu says, do you think makers don't give time to breathe in a story for fear of losing the audience in the middle of the film as it is in OTT? If that's the case, will it impact the writing and viewing experience? One of the things that I hate when writers are talking about a movie is lag. Audience, that lag feel pananga. I don't know what that is. It's like, yes, they will only feel it if you're boring them. But if you're giving them a quiet moment, I don't think they will care at all because they have already invested in Surya. They've already invested in the character. So let him breathe a bit. Like I don't know why he has to be doing hectic things all the time. But I think that's part of the either the cutting down for OTT thing that happened. I don't know how long the film was and how much was lost, or maybe a deliberate attempt to accelerate the pace of the film. Either way, I feel that those luxuriant moments, those moments of ease, would have added a lot more to the film. Vishwa Karthik says, this is a lovely question. There's a speculation that why we need more female directors owing to the character of Sundari Bommi in Soorarai Pottru. Although we have this popular saying that only a woman can understand another woman, we've had male directors who wrote extraordinary female characters from KB and Maniratnam's films to Jessie in VTV, Ponni in Iraivi, and Taramani, Vadachennai, etc. Yeah, I think it's a huge cliche because the whole act of screenwriting is basically imagining what another character is. And if actually speaking, I would say then if you're doing this cliche that male directors do not make great female characters, then we should be applauding Sudha for like, oh wow, a woman director, wrote a man who's so powerful and all that. That's real crap because the whole idea of screenwriting is that you have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of a man, a woman, an old man, an old woman, a mother, a father, yeah, I don't know what, like a young couple, child. That's the whole point of writing a screenplay. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters for this is the gift of empathy. You have to be able to empathize with this person and get into his or her head and make this person a three-dimensional person. And if you have that, then you can write anything. So it really depends on how good a screenwriter you are rather than what gender you belong to. Now, Mahima Nandakumar asks, in your review, you had mentioned something about directors making movies that are good but not striving for greatness. How can a movie or a creator bring in that would achieve cinematic greatness? Now, I think Soorarai Pottru is a solid film, right? What, in my opinion, and only in my opinion, would not necessarily in anybody else's, would make this a better film, is if it tried to be, say, okay, you want to make a mass slash masala film. That's fantastic. That's like anything can be made in any way, right? Any theme can be taken in any way, right? Now you want to make a mass or masala movie, you have to treat it as respectfully as you would treat a like a like a complete drama or something like that, right? And I felt that wasn't done to this extent. For example, the punchlines. Uh, I will bring down not just the cost barrier but also the caste barrier. Now that sounds like a great line. It's a huge punch, like cost, rhyming and all that. But what does it have to do with the story of an entrepreneur? Because these people are not uh, able to fly because of uh, like like the money factor. Now, let's say you're an oppressed caste and you had the money, you could fly. It's the money, it's a class problem that's creating. Now, I'll tell you a line from Arangetram. It's a very overwrought line, so don't judge it by today's standards. But the same caste kind of thing, like that Pramila character turns into a prostitute, right? Sex worker. Now, there's a point where she says, "Inga yaru en kathaikkaaga varanga, ellarum en sathaikkaaga dhaan varanga." Now, again that's rhyme, right? But there is a that line is absolutely integral to the film because she is a sex worker. Her skin is an important part of the work that she does. Here caste is not part of this equation at all. Class definitely is, because that is what Surya is striving for. He's trying to make this a flying common for all classes, right? Now, in that same village that Surya is, if there is like an oppressed class person who's got a lot of money, that man would be able to fly. The other thing that prevented people from flying is that all these jet and all these airlines were too big, so they couldn't fly into these second tier, third tier cities and all that because there were smaller airports and things like that, and there was just not enough. Not today, of course. Today we have everybody flying, but in those days there was just not enough. There were not enough people flying to justify these big airlines coming into places like Salem and I don't know, Tuticorin or wherever. But because of the smallness of the airline, he was able to connect everything by. So that's another thing, right? Which the movie has somehow, I don't know if it really brought out well, is that there is a genuine reason that these big airlines cannot come here because not many people have the money to fly. We are talking about some time back, right? Today, like flight tickets have come down, but at that point, flying was like a huge deal. I still remember when I first went to the US, it was like I climbed Mount Everest or something like that. It was like, wow, that's a mega achievement. So I think when you have that kind of a sensibility that says, I want to have this line, cost, then show me some caste related things that are informing what Surya is going through. Don't just throw in that line, because then if you're throwing in that line, it becomes simple punchline and doesn't really do anything. Deepan Rajendra Mohan says he's really looking forward to Film Company and South's collaboration with Ronak from Fully Filmy. Yes, we are too. But Ronak really liked the movie and make a special video. BR mentioned that you belong to the minority who wasn't impressed with the film. After watching the movie, I was confused with BR's review. Here is my perspective. The film doesn't need a scene with Surya running his hands over the surface of the plane. Uh, okay, so I didn't literally mean we need a scene where he runs his hand over the surface of the plane. I wanted a sense of something personal, right? Something like everything is all, I want to do this for the people, I want to do this for the people, I want to do this for the people. But I would have liked a moment that said, fuck, I did this for myself, I achieved this, because it's a huge achievement. And to not feel a sense of personal accomplishment on this is like, it makes him a little too noble, no, like a messiah. He's not a messiah, he's an entrepreneur. So I don't know, that felt odd to me. Shiv Shankar Radhakrishnan says, let's see if you're gutsy enough to project this question. The inspiration for SP was a Brahmin in real life, but he became a Periyarist and a Brahmin became the villain instead of a Marwadi. Are the mainstream movie makers wolf whistling a lot for politics? Of course they are. You cannot make a movie with a Brahmin as a good guy anymore. That's pretty much decades of Dravidian politics have made that impossible for a mass audience. Now, if you want a forget Brahmin, even like a dominant caste character, in OK Kanmani, the heroine was a Gounder, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to make a movie with a dominant caste character, then you will have to make it a niche movie like OK Kanmani, where you're saying, I'm making an upscale film for upscale audiences, and it's basically for the people in the cities and the NRIs. And the movie was a big hit, but within that niche. So you cannot make this all category hit with upmarket characters, upscale characters, and upper class, because the class, more than the caste, I think it's the class thing. People don't want to see like too many rich people on screen. It's something, I don't know why, because it's like if a poor hero gets a rich heroine, I think that's okay. But I think if the hero is rich, I think that creates a huge dissonance. I think after MGR, there's been such a projection of uh, the hero being poor, the hero being poor, the hero being poor, or at least one of the masses, one of the working classes. That I think, if you make this person a rich guy, then it becomes a problem. Or even if he's rich, then he's got to do something for the poor. So that's inevitable. So making this guy a Periyarist is from a Brahmin. It's partly wolf whistling for the audiences, yes, because that's what the nature of mainstream movie making in Tamil Nadu is. But again, it's not a big deal had this caste angle actually been explored. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not a problem that Brahmin became a Periyarist. It's just like it's not a problem that Arunachalam Muruganandam became a Madhya Pradesh guy in Padman. That's not the problem. The problem is that this caste issue is not really uh, projected as some huge basis to the movie. It seems like a little salt and pepper sprinkled on the film. That's what the real problem is, I felt. Ashwin Kumar asked, I don't understand why the film started with the accident. Is it setting tone or introduce us to passion upfront? It's because you want start with a dramatic scene and then build up to that scene. Because otherwise, if you start with that Bommi scene, you have a very soft kind of opening, right? Now here you want like rat like almost like a machine gun being fired into the audience kind of scene, so that they just sit up and like, okay, I know the movie's got me and I'm not going to let go. So that's a decision that's often made to kind of like to kind of grab the audience's collar and say, I've got you from frame one. So it's a style of writing. Finally, writer and provider asks, if people are comfortable to watch films on big or small screens at home, why should movies be released in theaters amidst worries about piracy and high ticket prices? Because movies are basically made for the big screen, and I have no doubt that over time movies are going to be made for and commissioned by OTT players. But right now, movies are associated with the big screen. So, and there is also in Tamil Nadu, there's a prestige of being a big screen release person. I think it diminishes the value of of a leading man, except in the case of Surya, because this is a very different case. But generally speaking, let's say a Vijay or an Ajit or one of those big players like Rajni or something directly releases a movie or thing, it will be seen as a, huge betrayal by the theater guys, by the theater association, and by the exhibitors and all that, because they are like banking on these big stars, because people don't really see the other films. They only come for, like, even a Vijay, Ajit, uh, Rajini, Surya, Karthi, even their flops make more money than other people's hits. Though they may not make like their flops because they cost a lot, but in terms of sheer tickets sold, in terms of the revenue generated, that will be much more than the so-called smaller film hits. So people depend on these stars to that for that ecosystem to survive. So if stars come out of it, then that whole ecosystem crumbles. Now let's say tomorrow Amazon offers 300 crores and says Vijay or Ajit or Rajini or something make a film, and they do it. Now that will really be the beginning of the end, because that's huge amounts of money, and these guys have very deep pockets. They are international, they are multinational players, they have deep pockets. So what will happen, I don't know, but I do wish that that day doesn't come. Thank you again for asking all your questions. The best questions will get a prize from Ronak Mangotil of Fully Filmy, and the prizes will be announced in an awards ceremony tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. They'll be announced in a video tomorrow. So stay tuned to Film Companion South. Keep watching, and see you soon in the next AskBR / Fully Filmy collaboration.